Welcome everybody. My name is Jeff Fowler. I'm the president of the Apartment Owners Association. Today we're going to talk briefly about how to repeal the death tax, but more importantly, not more importantly, but just focus-wise, we are going to talk a lot about ACA 13, and you may not know what that is, but if you're either a renter or a rental property owner, you're going to want to know about it and you're going to want to vote no on that. And so before we get into it, the Apartment Owners Association has been around for over 40 years and just blown away. Even just this last week, we surpassed the 100 Google review mark just for the main office. Got other offices that have other reviews as well. So just so thankful for your appreciation and you recommending us to others. And anyway, so there's so much that's going on here. Even just in this next week, we'll have how property management can add income and clients to your real estate sales. And so we got a real sharp gal that's going to be presenting on that, and that is going to be a live stream, so you'll want to catch that one. And then on September 12th, we're talking rent control in Buena Park, and specifically just how you need to comply, how you can raise the rent there, just addressing things specific to Buena Park. And then on the 19th, this will be an in-person in Oakland, avoiding procedural mistakes and eviction actions, specifically for Oakland and the Bay Area. So if you're up in that area, you're going to want to go to that, and there'll be Rich Beckman will be there answering questions, and so that'll be a good one. And then September 26th, maintenance of units and landlords' inspection rights. And so that's another one that we'll have. That'll be in Santa Clara in person. October 27th, we're going to have a doubleheader in person in San Diego, and that will be the new tenant protection ordinance for San Diego as well as asset protection. And that all is leading up to the big show on October 19th. We will have the AOA $1 Million Trade Show and Landlording Conference, and again, there'll be at least 150 booths. There will be over 20 different seminars that we will give in this one day. It will be a fire hydrant, but you're going to learn a lot, meet a lot of people, meet a lot of vendors, and just come away with more knowledge so that you can manage your properties better. And again, that's our goal for you is that you would be one of the top real estate investors here in the state, successful, and that things would go well for you. And that's definitely what we're trying to do. So all those different events, the magazine, all these things are ways that we're trying to equip you for property management. So subscribe to this channel and put the bell on if this is the kind of content that you're interested in. If you're watching on the AOA USA or the Facebook, if you're watching live, also know that you can come to the YouTube channel after the fact and rewatch or see what other things that we've done here. And also it's great to just share some of that information with other friends of yours, especially this one. You're going to want to share it with other people just so that we can get the word out. And we will take questions at the end. And if you're watching on AOAUSA.com, there's a little blue help button at the bottom, and they can get questions to us that way, as well as just in the chat if you're on Facebook or YouTube. And all right, so our speaker today, he's the president of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. He's a graduate of the Marshall Wythe School of Law at the College of William and Mary, where he received his JD degree in 1982. And after law school, he worked with the Pacific Legal Foundation for 9 years, another great organization. And he's had so many different accomplishments. One that I just want to highlight that impacts all of us that are here in the state of California is he was the principal drafter of the Right to Vote on Taxes Act, a measure that everyone voted on in 1996. And that has just been so key in our state for them to not just raise taxes and insert all kinds of tax-like fees on us. And anyway, so thankful for him and his work, and really I could go on. He's also the chairman of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Foundation, and which provides funding for taxpayer rights, litigation, and educational studies. He writes a weekly column and is a frequent guest on television and radio programs discussing fiscal policy and political issues. And so it's my pleasure to introduce to you John Coupal.
It's a pleasure to be here, and really appreciate the partnership we've had with AOA. We've been involved in so many fights together, and not only in this event today, but hope to see everybody down at your convention in October. Look forward to that event. That'll be fun. If you want to meet me in person, you're free to come down. I really encourage you to go to that. Again, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and AOA have been through several fights together, most recently on the repeal the death tax initiative. I'm going to touch on that briefly. Many of you are already aware of it. This is when Proposition 19, that was in 2020, took away the ability of parents and grandparents to convey their property to their children or grandchildren without triggering reassessment. They took away that right. So now, and the fallout from Prop 19 was catastrophic. When people realized that when the property was conveyed after the death of the parents, that it would trigger a massive reassessment, we started getting millions of phone calls. It has put the assessors in a tough spot, and we have tried repeatedly to provide some correction. As many of you know, and many of you helped us with our most recent effort to collect volunteer signatures to reinstate the protection that we had to convey property to our kids or grandkids without triggering reassessment. And we did that with an all-volunteer effort, and regrettably, we came up short. We did, however, get 600,000 signatures. We needed about 1.2 million, so we came up short. So we don't give up easily. In the wake of that, we partnered with Senator Kelly Suarto, who proposed a constitutional amendment for us, Senate Constitutional Amendment number 4. It got a lot of good buzz, but again, it did not make it through the California legislature, which quite frankly wasn't too much of a surprise, but we did use that opportunity to build out our coalition once again. So where have we gone from there? Well, we filed another initiative to again reinstate the protections that we had since the early 80s to be able to convey property to your kids and grandkids without triggering a massive reassessment. But this time we're doing it a little bit different. We drafted it in a manner that it could fit on one page. So we now have a downloadable petition. And if you go to repealthedeathtax.com, repealthedeathtax.com, you can click on the link and download a single sheet of paper and have that petition. There's 3 more pages after that, instructions, and also there's something called a major contributor form. But you can look at those. Do look at the instructions. Filling out an official initiative petition, you've got to cross every T, dot every I. You have to sign as a circulator as well as your own signature and support. Because it only fits on one page, there's only 2 signature blocks. So you sign it, have someone in your house sign it, and then what you can do is you can download more. You can download as many as you want. We will send petitions to people who don't have a printer, but most people in California have a printer. So we're asking you to print those on your own. If you need them, we'll send them to you, but we're trying to save money for the ultimate campaign. We're trying to get 1.8 million signatures this time around to make sure that we have more than enough to qualify. So we're off and running again. This is a very important project for apartment owners, because particularly owners of like 4 units, 6 units, smaller units, this is their source of wealth. This is their source of their intergenerational wealth that they want to hand off to their kids. We've already begun to see it when the parents pass away and it's conveyed to the children. and it triggers a massive reassessment. And oftentimes the children cannot afford the tax bill, so they end up selling it to either a major corporation or a tear down or something else. Tenants should be concerned about this as well. And so we are trying to bring back, again, this is our next effort at repealing the death tax. You can find out a whole lot of information on the website. You can go to hjta.org and click the link there, or go directly to repealthedeathtax.com. And we look forward, Jeff, we look forward to working with you and AOA to try this again. I know that your members were great partners in getting signatures last time. So we will have, it's downloadable, but we will also have petitions available at distribution centers, and the distribution centers can also collect those petitions. So
yeah, and we all of our offices were open for people to come in and sign. So those of you that don't have a printer, or your printer's out of ink like most of us, it seems like half the time it's out of ink, right? So yeah, you can walk into any of the offices and sign, and just look at the business hours and definitely come by.
That's fantastic. We really appreciate it, Jeff. Again, you guys have been outstanding on this, and our coalition is very broad. You know, one of the things about repealing the death tax is this is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. We had a lot of progressives who believe in affordable housing, and one of the things that surprised us, it shouldn't have surprised us, but it did a little bit, was the extent to which the minority communities were really concerned about the loss of that intergenerational transfer protection. The African American community, the Asian community, the Hispanic community. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback from those communities. In fact, we're coming up at an event pretty soon. I think it's called the Taste of Soul. It's sponsored by the African American community, coming up in Los Angeles. We will have a booth there. I will not be there, but Susan Shelley in our office, she will be there. So very excited about that as well. So Jeff, there's a lot I could say about repeal the death tax, but I think now would be a good time probably me to transition into the locomotive that's bearing down on us right now in the California legislature. So as many of you know, Proposition 13 has been under constant assault for the last 45 years. The tax and spend lobby does not like it. They have tried to weaken it over and over and over again, and it has resulted in this push-pull of the courts creating loopholes, the legislature creating loopholes, and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and our allies having to close those loopholes. We've done it in 1986 with something called Prop 62. We did it in 1996, as Jeff just mentioned, with the Right to Vote on Taxes Act, Proposition 218. And we've done it with another proposition to try to bring clarity to the issue of what is a tax, what is a fee, what has to be voted on, what isn't voted on. Look, you give our adversaries an inch and they'll take a mile. So this has been the constant battle, and we are now in the middle of another battle. And the battle is this. There was a recent California Supreme Court decision that created a whole lot of ambiguity as to whether or not a special tax at the local level required a 2/3 vote of the local electorate. For 45 years, the answer has been yes, of course, because that's what Prop 13 says. It says that local special tax requires a 2/3 vote. Well, the California Supreme Court created ambiguity in another case that didn't have to do with the vote threshold, that had to do with something else, but they implied that some of the laws in Prop 13 and 218 would not apply to any local measure that was put on the ballot by a citizens initiative. So local governments began to test the waters on that. And unfortunately, in many jurisdictions, they placed on the ballot, or they had their allies place on the ballot, tax increases that did not come from the legislative body, but were citizens initiative. Of course, many of them had the fingerprints of the city council all over them. And those passed with less than a 2/3 vote. And so we're seeking to reverse that. The name of that decision is the infamous Upland decision. Some of you may have heard of that. And so this is concerned not only homeowners, citizen taxpayers, but the business community, apartment owners, large businesses, everybody. This has been very concerning. And in fact, Jeff, as you know, in Los Angeles, one of the taxes that was imposed using this upland loophole was the ULA, which they called a mansion tax, which was poorly named because they should have called it the apartment building tax. And so that tax was a real estate transfer tax, and it's a very, very large tax. Anyway, that tax was approved barely in the city of Los Angeles, and that was one of the things that motivated us to join with the business community to present the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. That proposal has already qualified for the November 2024 ballot. Keep that in mind. The Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act has already qualified. It was not easy to qualify. We qualified that during COVID, and it was extremely difficult and it was expensive. But again, the business community, most specifically the California Business Roundtable, the California Business Properties Association, Chambers of Commerce up and down the state, the business community has been very good with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association in qualifying the Taxpayer Protection Act. One of the key provisions of that act would clarify that, yes, Prop 13 meant what it said, that if it's a special tax, it requires a 2/3 vote of the local electorate. So that is one provision. There's another provision that is extremely popular, and that is even if a tax increase at the state level has received the requisite 2/3 vote of each house, in order to be imposed, it still has to be put to the statewide electorate. That law does not exist right now. And by the way, because of that, because our adversaries have more than a 2/3 vote in the California legislature in each house, that's how they got the gas tax. They never would have gotten the gas tax in prior years because they did not have that 2/3 supermajority in each house. So voter approval of statewide taxes, closing the upland loophole, some transparency requirements, which are very good, making it clear that if you go into the voting booth and you're voting on a tax increase, it has to say tax increase. It can't say something like protects puppies and kittens, which, you know, they put that on the label to try to get you to vote for it. So we make it clear that if you are being asked to vote on a tax increase, it is clearly marked as a tax increase. Well, so there we are. We've got the Taxpayer Protection Act on the ballot in 2024. And apparently the Tax and Spend lobby has seen the polling on that, and they know that it will pass if voters get a chance to vote on it. So what they have done is one of the sneakiest things we've ever seen. Less than 2 weeks ago, they did a gut and amend on a different bill, and they pumped in all this language that now ACA 13 is a proposal that they're trying to get through the legislature right now. And we will know, Jeff, tomorrow whether it gets through the Appropriations Committee. But what this would do is it would set a higher standard, a higher vote threshold for a statewide proposal to amend the Constitution if that proposal increases a vote threshold at the local level, which the Taxpayer Protection Act does. Actually, it doesn't increase it. It simply reinstates it. But the way that ACA 13 is written, the Taxpayer Protection Act would require a 2/3 vote of the statewide electorate, which almost never happens for a proposed constitutional amendment, if ACA 13 becomes law. How would it become law? It would become law if it gets through the Appropriations Committee in the Assembly tomorrow, is voted on by the Assembly. If the Senate approves it, it will appear on the ballot, we think, in March, because people will vote on ACA 13. We don't have a proposition number yet. People will vote on that in March, and then that would have the effect of imposing a very tough threshold to pass the Taxpayer Protection Act. Now, here's the good news. We have sent out a lot of emails. Many of you have received that. The legislators' emails and petitions and phone calls. We are flooding the zone. They know that people see this as a direct threat to Proposition 13. It is a direct threat to Proposition 13 because it would essentially nullify a proposal that seeks to reinstate the protections of Prop 13. So the other side will say, well, this doesn't affect Prop 13. It absolutely does. So don't believe that. And I think most people in the media understand the impact as well. So we have several opportunities here. We're going to try to kill it in the Assembly. And if it gets to the Assembly, we're going to try to kill it in the Senate. And if it gets to the Senate, it appears on the ballot, we will wage a massive fight against it at the ballot box in March in order to preserve voters' ability to have their votes count on the Taxpayer Protection Act in November of 2024. And I know that sounds confusing, but understand that everything that we do and everything that your leadership at AOA does is to preserve the rights of apartment owners and taxpayers and property owners, homeowners, and that's what we're trying to do. So that's the overview. Jeff, I can take questions. There's another constitutional amendment, ACA 1, that would lower the 2/3 vote for things for infrastructure. I think because of what's going on with ACA 13, I think they're going to shelve ACA 1. If they don't, we'll let you know. But ACA 13 is, as I said, the locomotive on the track barreling down on us. It's about 100 yards away, and we need to stop it. And because if it hits us, it's going to be very, very, very bad. So, Jeff, with that, I don't know whether there are questions. You have questions, or just open it up to discussion if you'd like.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think everyone now, some people are aware of it, others are not. So now you are aware of it. At this point, it's going to hit the Appropriations Committee tomorrow, you said, correct?
Yes.
And so it's a little too late to get an email or a phone call off to them? Or what do you think?
Do it today. Go to our website, find your representative. And I would not focus on the Senate right now. If you go to our website, hjta.org, or go to find your rep on our website, you can call them. Just call the office and say, you may tell people that this doesn't impact Prop 13, but I know it does, so vote no. We need to keep that pressure on. And again, our partners in all the business communities are raising the ruckus on this as well, which is very, very good. So we're going to do what we can to kill it. And the other side sees an opening here to be able to raise higher taxes. We want to shut that door.
Great. Yeah. So for those of you, if you have a question right now, you can put that into the chat. You can put it into, whether it's Google whether it's YouTube or whether it's in the chat on the website. Go ahead, put that in, and then we can get a question to them. And so this is great update. Then come trade show time, you'll be speaking again. I think you'll be speaking in the afternoon. And so yeah, we're really excited about giving you a platform to do that. What'll be different between now and then?
What will be different between now and October is that the legislative session will be over. So we will know what specific proposals constitute the greatest threat, whether it's ACA 1, lowering the 2/3 vote for infrastructure. As I said, that doesn't appear to be moving real well right now, not the same way that ACA 13. If ACA 13 is qualified or passes in both houses, we will know at that point. And then it's World War III, quite frankly. I mean, I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but this is a real threat to Prop 13, and would take away all the work we did in drafting the Taxpayer Protection Act.
Right. Okay. And guys, really, our Jarvis Taxpayers Association, join there. Join, donate. Like they're. I don't have a report on how you use your funds, but I'm sure it's very efficient, and you're pretty stingy on you spend your money. I know it's super stingy because you're like us in that when it comes to political action funds, we want to make sure that we get the biggest bang for our buck. And it's such an honor to be able to lend our platform to you so that you can just inform the members and hopefully mobilize our members here. All right, here we go on YouTube. Let's see. Can you please provide a table at the Can AOA please provide a table at the upcoming AOA trade show in Long Beach? I'll volunteer to staff the table to collect signatures. So yeah, so we're talking about, so thank you very much for that. Definitely contact Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and let them know that you want to volunteer. And we actually, before we had this live stream, John and I were talking about them having a table and how it would be advantageous, just because there'll be a lot of rental property owners there, and they should be able to get lots of signatures. So with that said, you want to find them, not just go and see John Coupal speak, not just be a listener or a hearer, but be a doer as well, and find their booth. Hopefully they're going to have a booth, or at least we'll have a table out where you're speaking. We'll at least, at the very least, if you don't have a trade show booth, we'll at least have a table out for people to sign when you're speaking. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure we will. I just need to confirm that with our LA office. But
right.
I think the intention was absolutely we would love to have a booth down there.
Right. So that's just logistics and formalities. And again, there's going to be over 150 booths, and everyone there is, all the vendors there are geared towards people who have rental property. All right. On YouTube, we have Howard. Is the parent-child exclusion for parents' primary residence still in effect?
Yes, it is. This is a very narrow exception to the loss of the intergenerational transfer, and that is, if a child can inherit the property from the parent, it has to be a single child, I'm pretty sure, and it has to be their primary residence. It has to be their primary residence, and that means you have to take the homeowners exclusion, homeowners exemption on it. So it's very narrow, and if you ever sell it, it's going to be reassessed to full market value. If you wanted to rent it out, you lose it. So this is why we need to bring this back. So it's not just for a primary residence, but it's $1 million worth of non-residential property as well. So you'd get $1 million off the taxable value of a rental property. So that's very, very important.
Great. Glenn on YouTube. So if something passes that heirs basis for property tax assessment won't increase, does this mean that they also wouldn't get the stepped up basis for sale income tax purposes? I don't know if that made sense.
Well, it does. This is a question that comes up. One of the things that people have been doing is, in order to bypass Prop 19, is they're conveying their property, or they have conveyed their property to their kids before they pass away. But when you do that, they do get the stepped up basis. So you got to talk to your tax attorney on that one, because everybody's situation is different. that the property can be conveyed, but the rules on stepped up basis are like over here, and from the assessment perspective, the base year value is over here. They're distinct. They're similar, but they're distinct. So, and people do have to make that calculation. Okay, well, how long have I owned the property? What is the basis? What is the stepped up basis? How many kids do I have? There's so many factors that go into it. But that is a legitimate question to ask.
Mm-hmm. And Arnie here, I understand and appreciate all the efforts fighting all the ballot measures and legislation. However, there are individual tactics. What is the long-term strategy? So I'll let you.
The long-term strategy is to save California.
Yeah.
I mean, people are leaving the state in droves. Our long-term strategy is to, first of all, educate voters. We can't make a sea change here in California until people understand what is going on. I do think people are beginning to understand that the current political leadership in California is not getting the job done. Monumental waste of money. I mean, highest income tax rate in America, highest state sales tax rate in America, highest gas tax in America, and even with Prop 13, we rank 14th out of 50 states in per capita property tax collections. So we need to educate people, and that means all the people on this webinar. You know, we talk to each other. We're kind of always preaching to the choir, but the challenge is going out talking to people who are not politically engaged and getting them politically engaged, because I believe intelligent voters will make the right decision and begin putting supporting candidates who will start changing California. That's the long-term plan. The short-term plan is to just keep prevent more damage from being done, which ACA 13 would be significant damage.
Right. And coming up with the Taxpayers Protection and Government Accountability Act, that's something that would last for a long time. That's a lasting thing. But it's like water pouring through cracks. There's so many different ways, and as long as there's not a lot of balance in the government, things are going to continue to go higher taxes, more programs, and unfortunately, I know that a lot of people's heart is in the right place, and definitely for voters, but unfortunately, the politicians, when they tax everybody, they take that money and they're supposed to, like, let's say, fight homelessness. And then what they do is they end up giving it to an inefficient non-government organization where the CEO has $1 million yearly salary and nothing is done. Or you look at even the housing that the city has in different cities, and it's half vacant and totally underutilized and mismanaged. And then people, $1 billion just evaporates, and people are just wondering, what just happened there? And the answer is to raise more taxes and waste more money where we have nothing to show for it. So it's just insanity.
It is. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But California, its response to homelessness is a prime example of how California fails on governance, just failing on governance, the inability to address the important issues. And that's what I see up here in Sacramento, that the elected officials in the legislature spend most of their time worried about political infighting or these ancillary issues having to do with horse racing or something, because that's where there's a lot of money in some of these ancillary issues, these turf battles. There's not a lot of money doing the right thing on homelessness or housing. We need more responsive legislators is what we need. And it starts with us. In our representative democracy, the theory and the reality is we're the bosses. They're supposed to be working for us. And I think a lot of citizens forget that. And we need to hold our elected officials accountable for malfeasance and for corruption, as you folks in LA are very well aware of.
Yeah. It's happening every couple of years. Just a city council member, it seems like, is getting convicted for one thing or another. All right, on YouTube, Evans, what about inherited commercial, retail malls, etc. What about those types of property? They're wondering. Yeah,
if we're successful, it'll go back to the old rule under Prop 58 from the early 1980s, which is for non-residential property, you get that $1 million exclusion. Now, if you've got we had a question of should we put an inflation factor on it. We did not put an inflation factor on it. I would have liked to have, but two issues mitigated against that. Number one, it would give the other side a political opening that we're actually not just bringing back what the old rules were. And number two, in order to do that, we could not have fit the entire law onto one page. We were very much motivated by making the qualification of this version of repeal the death tax as easy as possible. And not only that, but if we're successful in doing this with a one-page petition with an entirely volunteer network, that sets a template to do other initiatives that are short and simple. So getting back to the previous question, Jeff, what's your long-term plan? If this model for changing the law with a pure all-volunteer force, that opens up all kinds of opportunities for education, homelessness, housing, everything.
Great. All right. Elaine on YouTube. I heard that you can possibly delay the start of the timeline depending on when you submit the death certificate.
I do not know that. I would check with the county assessor on that. And if they don't give you a straight answer, you can shoot us an email. You can send me an email at jon@hjta.org. I will send it to one of our legal people. I'm not, that sounds a little suspicious. For you folks in LA, you should know that although Jeffrey Prang is not known as a conservative, your assessor, he has been very good on the Prop 19 issues and the intergenerational transfer. He actually came up from LA and testified on our bill SCA4 to reverse Prop 19. So a lot of the assessors have been extremely helpful because they got dumped with all the work and all the bizarre rules related to this. So it's been a nightmare for them, and they've seen the benefit of having the old rules, and they've been disheartened at the number of people who have just been informed that their parents have died and now they get a tax bill. That is unusually cruel. And so that's one of the reasons we want to change it back to what it was.
Right. Here's a comment from Tom. You need to get Carr and the Realtors to admit their mistake. I'm disgusted. Realtors since 1980.
Well, I understand that. And of course, we think they were on the wrong side of the original Prop 19. Many of the local realtor boards have been very much on our side. And I think as we move forward, if our petition efforts show the kind of success that I think it will, I think we can get the realtors on board on this aspect, because one of their prime objectives was to be able to transfer your Prop 13 base to another county. That was another part of Prop 19. That was the good part of Prop 19. We always supported that. It was just they were forced into a situation where they had to accept taking away the intergenerational transfer in order to placate some of the more progressive elements in the legislature. So I think I'm hopeful they can come around. And I will say this about CAR, and that is, as it relates to ACA 13, they have been very, very good. So we hope they stand strong, and we're sort of willing to let bygones be bygones. But I wish they had not put us in this situation, because it's been very, very difficult to unwind. But again, as it relates to ACA 13, they've been very strong partners.
Great. All right. A special AOA member here, T. Swainer. Always appreciate you, all of your emails. And here he goes. We must get more good Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association endorsements for all races and judges. We lose in court as much at the ballot box. And a lot of you I'll let you comment, but before you do, people call all the time. They call us and say, hey, who are you going to vote for? And honestly, we point them to your voter guide, because you've done research on that. And so just so you know that resource is out there, that you guys do have a voter guide, and we appreciate the research that you put into that.
Well, thank you. And we do have, because there are probably more than 10,000 elected officials in the state of California, we cannot make informed judgments on all of them. So our policy is this: we will endorse in statewide races, legislative races, Board of Equalization races, and at the local level, we will endorse county assessors for obvious reasons, because they implement Prop 13. So there is a questionnaire. People can go to our website, and it talks about elections, and then it has a little button that says for candidates. They click on that. There's an endorsement form. So if anybody's running for any of those offices, they can fill out a questionnaire and they will be reviewed. For other local offices, we have a secondary option, and that is we cannot vet people, but we do give them an opportunity to fill out our Prop 13 pledge. And then if they sign that, we register that on our website, and we allow them to use our HJTA PAC logo. Mm-hmm. So for somebody who is a fiscal conservative, they go on, they take that pledge, they get to use the logo, and they get to say, I signed the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association pledge. Now, it's possible liberals could start doing that and then vote the wrong way, in which case we don't have much of a recourse. We can take them off. But again, we can't vet everybody. So those are the two options you have. I've not seen anybody abuse the option for the local government officials. Most people who sign that are proud to do it, and they're good taxpayer advocates.
Great. And Beth, on YouTube, how do we compare to other states' inheritance taxes? In general, her main concern, we're losing real estate dollars to more advantageous out-of-state options for investments.
Yeah, California does not have an inheritance tax per se. Our death tax is related to real estate being passed on and the implications for the assignment of a taxable value. California jettisoned the estate tax a long time ago. No thanks to the California legislature. It was an initiative that the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association helped to support, and so California voted out the estate tax. But the real issue is, I get a lot of calls, Jeff, from apartment owners who want to do 1031 exchanges to properties out of state because they've just about had it for investing in California, because it's become so draconian, the regulations, the tenant rights, return on investment, very, very difficult. So again, that is regrettable that people want to pull their investment properties out of California and do 1031 exchanges to apartment buildings in Texas or Florida, where landlords are not called bad people.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. We just had a 1031 exchange live stream a couple of weeks ago, and in the title was "Exchanging Out of California." Yeah, and I think that one had like really good viewership, and so it's at the front of everybody's mind, and people are, as I talk to people, that's where they're at, and it's just kind of interesting because for my background, I don't know if you know, but I left California, went to Baylor, studied there, and then I spent a long time overseas, and then moved back to Texas, and I had a home in Texas, and I'm one of those crazy people that moved back to California, and about 5 years ago or so, and so I'm locked in here, just because it's a fight that's worth fighting, and this is where I grew up. And it's a beautiful place if it's in the right hands. But when I came back, John, I'll tell you, it was kind of like a scene from Lion King, where Simba comes back to the pride or whatever, and Scar's ruling, and everything's just like wilted and gutted, right? And it's leadership. It really is just leadership, and it's a shame to see that. And, if you look anywhere where you have 20 million people, 2 million people dying, it's a leadership issue more than it is a natural event. And natural events occur and people die because of that. But even greater, even more dangerous is poor leadership.
Yeah. One of the very disheartening figure I saw was ever since 1849, California has increased its representation in Congress. I mean, and then I think we topped out 54 members of Congress. I can't remember what the number is, very high. But after the 2020 census, we actually lost a representative because they're divided among the states according to population. Texas picked up 2, Florida picked up 2. And it was clear that the liberal states were losing representation in Congress to the benefit of the conservative states, which is kind of a good thing, because if you like a conservative federal government, that's a good thing, but it's not good for California. The dangerous statistic I saw that is, if the demographic trends continue between now and 2030, and we don't know whether they will, we don't know. This is speculation, but if they do, and California's population remains stagnant or drops, then after the 2030 census, California would be on track to lose 5 representatives in Congress. And when you think about that, and the reduction in political power, I guess if you're a conservative, that's a good thing, but it's not good for the state to lose that kind of representation for the people of the state of California in Washington, D.C.
Right. And we're here in California, and I'd say, a lot of our members, they're both sides of the aisle, and it's more about what's best for everybody. What's the best way to administer the state? And right now it's just not getting done. Not getting done well. Okay, YouTube, looks like the last question here. Richard, you had mentioned that California has the highest sales tax and gas tax, and you had mentioned one other when you list that off. What other? Where else do we win? Where else are we the highest in taxes?
That's an odd definition of win. We have the highest income tax rate, 13.3%, highest state sales tax rate at 7.25, but that's the base rate before all the add-ins. I know that LA is now talking about being above 10%, depending on where you are. So we have a very high sales tax, highest gas tax, and even with Prop 13, we're not a low property tax state. We rank 14th out of 50 states in per capita property tax collections. So use that figure. When everybody said, well, Prop 13 starved education in California, no, it didn't. Schools are swimming in money. They're just not using it wisely. And again, getting back to what we talked about earlier, Jeff, and that's governance, just poor governance.
Right. Yeah, it would be great if there's a way to hold, besides just voting, a way. I wish there were more transparency in how funds were being used. Yeah. And that the politicians would at least measure, okay, if I'm going to give you $5 million to house the homeless, like, let's see how that actually worked out, and not just give you another 5 million, but how about opening it up to private companies, even instead of just the nonprofits that are, if you're going to collect that, Right. So lots of work to be done. And if this is successful, if you guys end up donating to Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, then I think this was a success. If you call today, if you find the Appropriations Committee, if you find those phone numbers and give a couple people a call, and if you've never done that today, then this is a massive success. And so really, we're hoping that this activates you. And really, AOA's philosophy is grassroots. It matters that we say something, but it matters even more when the 20,000 plus members behind us also say something. And really, it takes all of us, not just AOA as an organization, but let's all do it. And so, hey, we should get off this thing and get on a call with somebody and fill up the voicemail box here.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity, Jeff. And if people do want to join us, please do. It costs $15 a year to join the association. But for other people who are interested in the tax deductibility, they can donate to our foundation, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Foundation. We don't use those funds for political advocacy, but we do our litigation, like our ULA litigation is financed through our foundation. So if that's an option for somebody, they're always free to reach out and go to our website.
And you may not be able to see it, but we do have the email and the website, phone number, all that listed just below you right now. So
Great.
anyway, I'm really looking forward to seeing you in October.
Okay.
And I hope that your seminar is well attended. And hopefully we have a good update at the show.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll
Take
see
care.
you later.